It's funny that 2 weeks in a row, I really thought it was very prevalent for me to do a platform segment before we began the show. I don't know if anybody watches The View and heard about Whoopi Goldberg, but she really did strike a chord with me, and it's all over the place. It's streaming around the world about her new cause. So what happened was she is it okay, Jim? She made a surprise appearance because she was sick, and really no one said how sick she was. It was not broadcast. They kind of kept it under wraps. But she came back onto the show and she was talking about the fact that she was very sick. She had double pneumonia and she had sepsis. And through the process, she was in the hospital and they were going to be releasing her, and her doctor had prescribed some medical equipment that she needed for her breathing to keep the recovery going, to breathe, almost like a nebulizer. I'm not sure if it was a nebulizer, but my grandson and my daughter used to use nebulizers, so it was kind of the same kind of treatment. But the doctor prescribed it, and then the insurance company didn't approve it, and that just, we've been talking about that forever, and I was talking about it with my Assemblyman Fitzpatrick. It's been our platform for our entire 5 years of my foundation is insurance and politics should not be the determining factor in recovery. It just shouldn't be. You know, I talk about all the time of all the recovery groups that I go to and all the people that I see, and they're really very taken back by, their family members or loved one has suffered a stroke, and then they have to deal with the insurance, and they have to go to bat for the insurance, and they have to keep the family up and running, and they have to go to work because they need to find it. It just becomes this very trying, unhealthy environment all the way around. So I wanted to do a platform segment once again, because like with Luke Perry last week, where he passed from a stroke and it really became the forefront of the news, and I said that his passing is going to be really a light in education and awareness that strokes can happen to anybody at any specific time. It doesn't matter. It doesn't discriminate. And Stephen on the show today will acknowledge that as well. He was a young college student, or at that age when he suffered a stroke. I was 26 years old when I suffered my major stroke. I couldn't walk or talk. I was blessed because I had my father who supported and made it very, very easy. Although the physical part was hard, financially, my father made it very easy for me to go through this. His main concern was me getting the full recovery that I needed. And that's why I'm sitting here and I'm becoming tearful, because that's why I'm so passionate about it. So, everybody should have the same care and support as my father gave to me when they're going through any illness, but our world is stroke and aphasia. So I thought it was really important for me to take this, capture the moment, to talk about how important it is for us to begin the conversation, to keep it alive, keep the conversation alive, which actually is that hashtag that I began last night. Keep the conversation alive. Keep the conversation alive about strokes being happening to anyone. It doesn't discriminate, and keep the conversation alive. The conversation, it doesn't mean that things are going to change. When I spoke to Assemblyman Fitzpatrick, we were talking about budgets and finances and who's responsible and who could pay. And so I get it. I'm a businesswoman. I'm in the industry. I know that there is a budget, but there has to also be a way to make it work for everybody. So that's what this show is about. This show was scheduled way before Whoopi spoke about her situation. I think she spoke on Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday or something like that. But I just wanted to really bring to the platform, bring to light that we are in the conversation, and that's what this show is about. So we'll see you in a few minutes, and thank you for listening to me.
deepest cuts I heal by faith. Now I believe there comes a time when everything just falls in line. We live and learn from our mistakes. The deepest cuts I heal by faith. Now I believe there comes a time when everything just falls in line. We live and learn from our mistakes. The deepest cuts I heal by faith. Now I believe. All fired up. All fired up. All fired up. All fired up, fired up, fired up. Now I believe there comes a time when everything just falls in line. We live and learn from our mistakes. The deepest cuts I heal by faith.
Hi. Welcome to RenéMarie Stroke of Luck. Thank you so much for dealing with my passion the last 2 weeks. I just think, when the opportunity presents itself to you, you really need to capture it and take that platform. Like I don't let anything get away. Like it's like, okay, that happened. Okay, let's talk about it. Let's bring it to light. So it was really a passion of mine, and everyone knows that our my RenéMarie's Language of Love Foundation, the 3 mission statements. One is to bring stroke and aphasia awareness to the world. The other one is to do an annual telethon, which we've complied with both of those. We're slowly and gently beginning to comply with our 3rd mission statement, which is really a very passionate of mine because of what I spoke about with my father. It's that we're to help those that their insurance has run out after suffering a stroke or aphasia. So and to me, when we talk about it, it's like, well, who do we pick and how do we pick them and why do we pick them? There's so many people in the world that need help with finances, and that's what this show is about. We're just going to begin, keep the conversation going with our guest today about, how can we do that? How can we as a team, with everyone come to the table and make it work and really put love before money when it comes to recovery in any aspect. Our special guest today. Oh, by the way, I'm on a high because of what I'm talking about. But here's my co-host Judy Marlowe.
Hi,
Judy.
how are you?
Happy St. Patrick's Day, by the way.
Yes.
Can you see these, Judy? Should we put these on? Can you see them now?
Oh, yeah.
Wait, Judy's got to put hers on, too. Okay, look at the camera. Okay, we're silly. Anyway, so we have a really important show today. We have a roundtable discussion, and our special guests are Assemblyman Andrew Rea. He is the ranking member of the Health Committee. Am I correct?
Yes, New York State Assembly.
New York State Health. Say it
New
again?
York State Assembly's Health Committee.
Good.
Or Committee on Health, however you want to do it.
Okay. And then we have Robert Trotta, Suffolk County Legislator, the 13th Legislative District. Thank you so much
Thanks
for
for
joining
having
us.
me. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you for joining us, Andrew, as well.
My pleasure.
And then we have back on our show a really very special, he's actually a family member now. We gave you a title. I don't know if you know this yet.
Yeah, I remember that whole.
we made you a Stroke of Luck correspondent.
Very cool. I'll put
Because-
that on the resume.
Yes, you put it on your resume because he was on our show and he really was passionate about bringing stroke awareness and really joining the team. And in my world, I think it's very important to have youth as a part of the conversation so that we could change the dynamics moving forward. And you're a prime example. You know, when my stroke happened at 26, nobody knew it could happen to a 26-year-old. Everybody thought it happened to your grandparents. But now the minds are changing, and you are the forefront of the conversation. So thank you, Stephen, for joining us today.
Thank you, and thank you for having me again.
Oh, you're very welcome. You're welcome. So, Andrew.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about what's going on with the health industry, the health legislation.
Well, New York State, we're poised to pass a $175 billion budget on April 1st. That puts us in the top 10 economies in the world.
Wow.
That's wonderful.
And, well, depends how you look at it. But of that $175 billion, roughly half of it goes to healthcare costs in New York State. We have a very generous Medicaid program. Which is a good thing, but everything comes at a cost. But some interesting things that are going on, and the timing is actually perfect, but New York State right now is in the middle of rewriting its stroke services regulations. Specifically, one of the areas that I've been concerned with is dealing with EMS triage, because we all know if you get to the hospital quick enough, if they identify a stroke quick enough, the long-term effects shrink.
Right, but that's why I don't mean to cut you up, but that's why we say that people need to know the signs.
Correct.
They need to, when they call 911, they need to let the 911 answering know it could be a stroke, so that you can inform the ambulance what to kind of gear towards to look for.
Correct, and specifically on that, when you're talking about EMS triage and transport, ELVO strokes, which are the emergent large vessel occlusions, as you can tell, I'm not a doctor. That being said, those are the ones that can be, if they're identified and treated early on, they tend to be the ones that can leave you with the most impairment afterwards.
Is that a rupture? Is that
you had to drill down on that. I just told you I wasn't an expert on strokes.
No, well,
I'm just reading the letter I sent to the health department.
we actually have Dr. Beckulis, who is one of our
Dr. Carmen Beckulis from Good Sam Hospital.
Yeah, he's actually joined our team to be our counsel or person to ask questions to. He came on the show last week after the Luke Perry to talk a little bit about that.
Elbow strokes.
My point is that we'll ask him.
My guess is Luke Perry may have died from that. The elbow strokes tend to be the ones that kill you.
Right. It was a massive stroke. Yeah.
So if we can identify, if we can make sure our ambulances have the clot buster drugs on the bus.
And we actually have that on the Long Island Expressway now due to Stony Brook Hospital. They have it at the Icelandia exit 57 and also at Shirley.
And that's very interesting. So, that's one of the things that we're actually working on right now in Albany. The health department's drawing up new regulations, and
so that's already been passed.
It's not a passed thing. It was in legislation. The health department was drawing new regulations on how to proceed forward on that issue. So I had the opportunity to write, to have certain measures put into the new regulations, and elbow strokes were one of the ones.
What is it called?
Okay, the official name is...
No, I want to...
Well, it's...
Because I'm learning as well.
Sure,
because
no.
You know what the truth is? I'm not a doctor either. That's why this show, I bring on professionals to help me with the conversation.
Are we talking about a bleed, a hemorrhagic?
Yeah, well, it's called an emergent large vessel occlusion. Everything in Albany is an acronym, so they call it an ELVO.
Okay. So we'll you know what, we're not going to put you on the spot.
I was going to say, who's got Google? You got Google over there?
No, what we'll do is we will find out the answer and give it on our next show.
Tomorrow I'm going to the mobile stroke unit launch. There's a new, at Stony Brook University at 1 o'clock, they're bringing out or exposing for the first time a mobile stroke ambulance
Yeah,
type
that's
thing.
And
what I
just
was
think,
talking
Yes,
about.
that's
Yeah.
when you go, you're going to sit there and go, well, so how does this affect people with an elbow?
Exactly.
They're going to think
Oh,
you're
no.
the smartest man in the
They're not going to think that, believe me.
Oh, that's wonderful that
Yes.
you're doing that.
And one thing that Andrew pointed out that I want to expand on was that we have a $178 billion budget.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Well, in Florida, which has 1 million more people, their budget's only $88 billion.
Wow.
And they clearly have more senior citizens and more
Definitely.
health
And-
So
care.
no
why,
state income
why,
tax.
why is
And
that
no state
comparison?
income.
Why? What's the
comparison
what's the comparison?
is maybe we're doing something wrong if that another state with 1 million more people and older people can provide a service for half as much money with no state income tax. Maybe something's going wrong in New
Well,
York.
that's a good thought. I mean,
Half
that's
as much budget.
We spend, and Rob is right, when I first started in Albany 17 years ago, the state budget was under $100 billion. So that just goes to show you that in 17 years, we're well on our way to doubling our budget. That being said, it's definitely more expensive to live in New York than Florida, but we often spend money like drunken sailors in Albany. And when you look at our Medicaid our Medicaid program, of which we spend close to $75 billion a year on, we spend more on Medicaid. We used to spend more on Medicaid than California and Texas combined. And California has many more millions of people than New
Right.
York State because we have a very generous program. 23 federal options that the federal government says we don't have to offer. So literally our Medicaid program under the Obama standards for the ACA would be considered a platinum program. So if you're poor in New York, you get far better health care than just about anyone else that's got private pay insurance.
The truth is, many years ago, I went through a divorce, and the bottom line was that I needed help paying for my PSC&G, and I put a application in, and they wouldn't help me because I made too much money because I worked 3 jobs to try to make my children see that
terrible.
you need to work for things. It can't be just handed to you. And I'm thinking, like, all I need is that $100 or $200 help a month to survive. And people on the other side, not that some of them aren't valid in their needs, but they're taking advantage of the society and using that. And once again, Assembly Fitzpatrick and I spoke about that. People scam the system,
Sure.
and that really hurts
Lots
those.
of people scam the
Yeah.
system.
Yeah, but
And it's sad.
when we talk about Medicaid reform, it's never going after the people that abuse the system. It's usually the provider side that we go after, because many of my constituents, 80% of their district is on Medicaid, and New York City controls your entire state government. So that is one of the reasons. This year, now that you have one-party rule in Albany, they propose to raise taxes $5 billion over the next 2 years, which is quite clearly unsustainable. But
They want to raise
taxes
Yes.
$5 billion over the next 2 years. So, just do the arithmetic. If you kept going at that rate,
Yeah.
in 10 years, we're going to be grease.
So how do we start the official investigation of comparison?
I think you need to run government more efficiently.
But I'm just saying, you just made a really powerful statement. Not a statement,
Fact.
fact. It's a fact. So how do we, as not me, but Judy, how do they bring their, because you're a New Yorker, I live in New Jersey. How do they bring that to the forefront and say, okay, I heard this, how do we change that?
You know what people are doing? They're moving to Florida, where they're not paying state income tax. So they're moving to South Carolina. And
Tennessee,
that's evidenced by the
Texas.
fact that people are fleeing New York.
And it's not the weather, contrary to what the governor says.
Exactly. It's over taxation, the inability for a company to come here. Because why would a company come here when a house is
You're right.
$500,000 and the taxes are $12,000 when they can go to
I know.
A lot
South
of companies
Carolina
have left.
and the taxes are. The house is $300,000 and the taxes are $1,200. A company can be way more profitable in another state, so they're not coming here. And that's Amazon is a good example of that.
Yeah.
There's a variety of different things, and
And we've had that problem for
Andrew
many years.
summed it up. It's going to come to a head at some point, and the government. Don't think that we can't go bankrupt. We can. Look at Detroit. Look at Stockton, California, and we're heading that way.
Wow.
Now, to bring it full circle, in keeping in the format of what we're discussing today on the show, there are some benefits to having a large population state that spends a lot. And one of them being is, under the President Obama's Affordable Health Care Act, the ACA, most states aren't doing that well because they have very limited choices. So, one or two different private policies. New York State actually does very well under the ACA because you have 5 or 6 different plans that compete. So
There's 5 or 6 different plans under the Obama health care.
Well, in other words, private pay plans that you can go out and purchase. We also have the essential plan, which is the state's insurance program, and then you have the Medicaid program.
Right.
So if you're poor, below 200% of poverty, you qualify for the Medicaid program. Keep in mind, 1/3, approaching half of all New Yorkers are on some form of Medicaid. That's ultimately what's going to bankrupt the state, because once you have more people paying into the system, more people taking from the system than paying into the system is when it crumbles.
That's one thing that I was thinking, and we'll get to you in 1 second, Stephen, because I don't want to have him not in the conversation.
That's okay. I'm learning a lot.
Yeah, you do, right? You do.
He's learning to move to Florida.
I was listening. What I said, I was listening to the interview with Michael Fitzpatrick on the way, and just to really get back in the thought pattern, because my life is so crazy that I have to really gear up. Like, my travel in for an hour and 10 minutes is really setting me up for what I'm going to talk about when I get here. And we were talking about that, and what was he talking about when the government controls the Medicare, the healthcare?
Well, were you talking about single payer?
Yes, single payer.
Well, that's a whole conversation for another day, and should scare every stroke victim out there.
I know, and that. But what I was thinking was, and this was going through my brain. You're talking about people paying in. I'm like, okay. So that still doesn't help those that don't pay. Like, everybody, if everybody's going to benefit from it, everybody should pay equal, or at least a part of the putting in.
And those under $25,000 would be earning under $25,000 wouldn't have to pay anything.
Right. So that's but that's like, okay, that doesn't make sense to me. So it's like there's a lot of crazy stuff going on, and the truth is, let's roll it on back, is like,
Whoopi said something that was really important. She said she had been paying her insurance for so many years, her health insurance, and now when she needed the breathing machine, an advocate said, even though the doctor said that if you need it and you were near death, you can't have it. Reminds me of when my dad needed physical therapy after his stroke. They said, well, he's not reacting fast enough. Well, we're talking a few weeks. He's not reacting fast enough, so we're going to stop the rehabilitation. And I looked into the fact of getting an ambulance, taking him to a physical therapy location. But when I heard what it would cost, I couldn't afford it.
And it's so sad. It's so sad.
And he was paralyzed on his whole right side, and I couldn't really...
Well, what concerns me, first off, the fact that Whoopi Goldberg even has insurance is kind of almost frightening, because I'm sure she can afford the device that the doctor wanted her to get. Number two,
but
people...
She asked that. No, she asked that.
She
asked. And she said something. I said to them, well, what about if I rent it? And they said,
no.
Nobody ever asked that before. And then she said...
She could buy it, never mind rent it.
And then she said this. She says, okay, I'll buy it. And they were like dumbfounded. They didn't know what to do with that.
But here's the problem with Whoopi. Whoopi's going to be the first person to tell you that she's in favor of a single-payer healthcare system for all of the country. Problems like that get worse under single-payer. You are going to have rationing of medicine under single payer. You're already seeing it in California under their Medicaid program, where, heaven forbid, you need to see an eye surgeon to keep you from going blind. You have a very good chance of going blind before you can get an appointment to see that.
Because you have to wait maybe months or a year
Correct.
or more. And
Correct. And the same problem in Canada, which is why they come to New York for their health care.
That's right.
Just a protection of this TV program, because we never want to point fingers at anybody or throw anybody under the bus. So, I
love you, Whoopi. sometimes.
No. Because I always tell people this show is not political. Doesn't have one ounce. But we do. But I do respect the
Sure.
fact of like the conversation. I want to just make sure that we stay right in that.
I like to
lane.
say there shouldn't be a Republican or a Democrat way to look at healthcare. There's only the most efficient, most inclusive way to look at healthcare, and then the argument becomes, how do you get that done?
Oh, could you say that again?
No.
Say that again, because I was talking in between your comments, going, yes, that's it, yes. Okay.
Let me see. There should be no Republican or Democrat way of looking at healthcare. It should be the way to look to see how you can get the most inclusive system with the most benefits available, and then it becomes a discussion on whose side is the best way to get there.
And how do we get there?
And how it's going to
How do
be
we get there?
beneficial to everyone.
That was what I wanted to say before. Let's roll it back into like someone suffers a stroke, like Stephen and myself, we suffer major strokes. And, and our families, they really don't care about insurance or anything at that particular time. They don't care about that. What they care about is us recovering and especially when a stroke happens out of the blue, it's frightening. Your family doesn't know what to do. And us as stroke patients are, and correct me if I'm wrong, Stephen, and you were saying this, and I'm going to let you say it in 1 second. We were saying to ourselves, I'm okay. Like we were yelling out of our heads, like, I'm okay. We couldn't get it to them. And our families were standing there with these devastating,
You're right about
what's going to
that.
happen now? So go ahead, Stephen.
Yeah, and with that, there was so much uncertainty, at least in my case, of what caused it. So there was tests, there was, blood tests, there was brain scans, you name it, because they were trying to rule everything out. And throughout that whole time, the uncertainty kind of like freaked out my whole family. Like, not only did you have a stroke, but
Sorry.
that's okay.
I thought Jim had.
There was so much
uncertainty,
at least in my case. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, they weren't sure what caused it, so the uncertainty was, it made them very uncomfortable and upset because it was not only, okay, this happened, but now let's figure out why so it doesn't happen again. So there was a lot to be concerned about at the time,
Stephen,
other
can you
than
just
how to pay for it.
give us a brief description of what happened and the things that you did that you probably,
Yes.
in rethinking,
Yes.
were not good ideas.
Right. So
because you could have died.
right.
Yeah, but I want to.
Sure, go
I
ahead.
want to grab a moment there.
Sure.
That when you're suffering a stroke, it's a brain attack. So what you're doing, you have no control over what you're doing. You have no idea what you're doing. So you think you do. I'm just saying. So I'm just like answering. Like now that you're a little bit clearer, you can understand what you should have done.
Right. Looking back on it,
Right.
it's like.
And
Go
you were
ahead.
23
What were
when
the?
this
Tell us the
happened.
symptoms.
Sure. So I'll give the abridged version because I think I spoke about it for a whole
Yeah.
hour last time.
Yeah, we had
But-
a good conversation.
Yeah, but basically I was at work. I work in an elementary school, and I was helping a student. I remember I leaned over to look at his work on his desk, and all of a sudden my ear, it felt like popped. Like I heard a ringing, and my ear was it was in a lot of pain, and it was like I can pretty confidently say it was like the worst pain I ever experienced in my life. And I used to play rugby looking like this, so I used to, I would get knocked around. I felt some pain, and this ear thing stood out. So that in itself was weird, but I thought it was an ear issue. I thought I had an ear infection or my eardrum ruptured. I wasn't thinking stroke because I didn't have any of the other symptoms that make you think stroke. But then I started to get dizzy. The room was spinning, and I had to sit down, and I kind of just like put my head down, and it passed. And I went to basically the school nurse, and I was like, I felt really dizzy. I don't really know what to do, but I feel fine now. And we basically agreed, like, okay, I'll go home and I'll kind of sleep it off, rest it off. Then when I was driving home, just in case, like to be precautious, I took the side streets rather than the parkway, because if I got dizzy like that again, it would have been impossible to operate a car.
That's right.
So I almost got home. I took the side streets. Takes a little longer. I was very close to home, and it happened again, like this time times 10. And not only was the ear pain back, but I was dizzy, and I felt like numbness, almost like when the dentist gives you Novocaine, like in your mouth, and it kind of just like spread, and all of a sudden my face was.
And you're in the car by yourself.
Yeah, I was on the phone with my girlfriend because that's like our thing. We always, every time we're in a car ride, we call each other. But
Thank God.
this time it was more like, something just happened that was weird. I wasn't really sure what it was, so I wanted to be on the phone with her just in case. And at one point during the car ride, well, I had her on speaker. Obviously, I'm not driving.
Right.
Thank you for
Yeah,
clarifying that.
Yeah, because the only thing worse than having a stroke while driving is having a stroke while talking on the phone while driving. But so I said to her every time she spoke, since it was on speaker, my ear was so sensitive and it was in so much pain. This was even before like the episode. It was still hurting from the previous time. And I was like, can you just not speak as bad as that sounds? She's like, do you want me to hang up? I was like, no, stay on the line. Just don't say anything, which thank God she did, because when it really got bad, I don't think I would have been able to like use my hands and like call 911 regardless. Right. It wasn't even really thinking like that, but if I wasn't on the phone with her, maybe I would have jumped to that. And I basically said to her, I was like, I pulled over and I said to her, I need you to pick me up. And as she's trying to figure out where my location, I'm trying to explain to her like what I see, where I am, but I can't get the words out because my lips were drooping. Jesus. So I think I shouted out like KFC and like Chase Bank, something like that. Like I was able to get those words out, and she found me somehow.
Wow.
Yeah, and she pulled up, and she kind of she hates me telling the story because she kind of was like, neither of us were thinking stroke. I said as a joke when my lips started to go, I was like, oh, it's like I'm having a stroke, and we both kind of laughed it off. But
wow, that's incredible.
Right, she was thinking like, okay, like I'll come get him because he's.
Did you call an ambulance at this point?
No, so basically what happened was she pulled up, and we didn't really know what the next course of action was. She was either going to take me somewhere or call my parents, but neither of us were really thinking stroke. But then when I got out of my car to get into her car, I threw up, and like the vomiting like kind of like made the symptoms go away, as weird as that sounds. So like my face, everything went back to normal. I was no longer dizzy. And I started to feel better, but she saw like the condition I was in plus the vomit, and she was like, okay, we at least need to call your parents.
Right.
And we called my parents. I was like in no danger anymore. Like I actually felt totally fine once I got that out of me. But the ear was still hurting me, so my mom, myself, and my girlfriend decided to like at least go to an urgent care just to check up and see if like everything's okay. I went to an urgent care. They gave me a flu test after I described everything that happened to me. Gave me a flu test, checked me for an ear infection. And then they were like, oh, people just get dizzy sometimes. Oh. Go home and take a nap.
Oh, boy.
So, taking a nap is the worst thing you can do.
Right. So that's what I did. I went home and I took a nap, and my mom woke me up, and she was just like totally uncomfortable with the diagnosis. She was like,
thank God.
Yeah, she was like a little
Moms
bit.
know.
Yeah.
Moms know.
I'll be the first one to tell you that I can like be dramatic when I have a cold, but this was like my mom noticed. Like everyone kind of noticed. Like, okay, he looks like he's in some serious discomfort. Yeah. So she took me to the hospital. I had the stroke probably like 10:30 in the morning. And
you had 2 strokes.
Yeah, it was 2 episodes caused by the same blood clot. So depending on which doctor you talk to, they'll say I had 2 strokes, or they'll say I had 2 episodes from the one stroke. But so between going to the urgent care, coming back home, taking a nap, getting woken up, I didn't get to the hospital until like 2:30, and the strokes were at like 10 o'clock, 10:30. So had it been
a lot of time went
too much time went by, yeah. So like looking back on it, wouldn't drive a car, would have called 911, would have gotten an ambulance, gotten to the hospital, but I didn't really think a stroke was in the realm of possibility. Yeah,
that's why we're working to go to colleges and high schools to educate the students on strokes and aphasia. Myself and the Life's Next Chapter, where there's an organization that we're doing fundraisers and healthcare fairs at colleges.
Very cool.
That's
if you need any help with that.
Something else to worry about, right?
Yeah.
What's that?
But having a stroke, I mean, you wouldn't think of a stroke at that age, but you should think.
And even an unborn baby could have a stroke.
Yeah.
But there's so many. I've seen so many stories on the air about children that have saved their parents' lives because they were aware. Listen, it doesn't matter if you know what's happening to them, but if you see something that doesn't seem right, and you're by yourself with your parents, pick up the phone and teach them to call 911.
I was a cop for 25 years, and I saw many, 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 many strokes, too many strokes. And you walked in the room and you knew what it was.
Yeah, because you just were experienced. But me, back when I had my stroke, my family had no idea what it even was. Like,
especially at that age.
And it was 30 years ago. This is my 30th anniversary of my stroke. Wow. So now I'm telling my age, but I'm very proud to still be here and to have this, to be blessed to be in the condition I am.
I think people recover a lot better now than in the past, because it used to be if you heard of someone had a stroke, it was sort of downhill from there. And I think over the years, it's been,
Well,
people
time
recover.
is time is everything.
Time is everything.
Time is of the essence.
Yeah, one of the things that's a good lead in to this is Assemblyman Michael Fitzpatrick and I were talking about is with the health care, with the cost of the equipment nowadays, it's so technology and it's so much more expensive to operate, and that makes the prices go up. You want the best health care, but yet you're using a piece of equipment that's more expensive to get that. So that all plays a part of the budgetary. Am I correct?
Well, sure, and these are the things that keep me up at night when you have the single payer healthcare debate, because you will see rationing of medicine, you will see government forcing you to use the less expensive. You will stifle technology advancement, or because you're not going to be investing in capital. One of the most important things we do as a state when we're financing our hospital and healthcare system is capital improvements, where we can give money from the state to our not-for-profit hospitals to allow them to buy some of the more up-to-date equipment, to
Right.
allow them to come up with new ideas and procedures and be an innovator instead of a follower.
Right.
And we
Right.
take great pride in New York
Right.
about innovation.
Right, and that's why the telemedicine is very important, because people that live 2 or 3 hours from a hospital, when the ambulance get there, at least they have the telemedicine
Right.
and that sometimes that's not covered under insurance.
Last year, we actually mandated that in New York State's budget. This year, the governor and his executive proposal took out the funding for telemedicine, and it is important. Probably more so for upstate New York. People
Right.
don't realize how big New York is. And I
Right.
say it's 3 states. It's upstate, it's New York City, and it's Long Island, Westchester.
Right.
And you're right. Upstate, it could be a half an hour before an ambulance gets to you.
Right.
Oh,
Telemedicine is vitally important. I just saw a report today on the Apple Watch may be pretty good at identifying arrhythmias. Well, what happens when you have an arrhythmia? You could have a stroke.
Right.
But it's got a 20% false positive. But imagine how awesome it would be if they could perfect that technology where everybody who's wearing an iWatch will know when they're having a stroke or an
Right.
arrhythmia that could lead to a stroke.
Right.
So technology, this is something, particularly with strokes, the better the technology gets, the quicker we have the ability to get you clot-busting medicines. We're going to see great advancements. You may have a stroke, but you're not going to have debilitating strokes like you would have, or death.
Wow.
So
But
let's hope.
That's what this that's why we want to keep the conversation alive, because I didn't know that they had taken that out of the and that's another thing, like why this is why I'm asking it. I'm asking it 20 million times. Why should the government have anything to do with something that insurance covers? And because it
What can we
streams
do
back,
about it?
and it streams down
if
to
people
our.
have no insurance, they have, the government
Oh.
pays.
Yeah,
them.
well, this is under the Medicaid
So this is under the
program.
Medicare program.
Yeah.
This isn't about.
There's
so
limited money, obviously.
Right. Private pay is going to do what's beneficial to them.
For them.
Telemedicine is extremely cost effective and saves private insurance. So that's why the privates are moving forward with this. When you have home health care, right? It's much less expensive to take care of somebody at home who's on home health care and is hooked up to telemedicine than putting them in a nursing home.
right.
And it's nicer to be at home than
Sure.
it is to be in the nursing.
So Stephen, how about your recovery? How did that process? Did you have any insurance situations?
Well, I was actually very fortunate. Like when I said that everything went away, when I vomited, everything went away to the point where when I was in the hospital, I was admitted because they were trying to do all these tests to figure out what was wrong with me. But every so often, physical therapists would come in, like speech therapists, and they were trying to reteach me how to walk and speak, and I was like, guys, like I can do it, and they were
Yeah.
like, really? Like, because there's a difference between a TIA,
Right.
like a mini stroke, and like a full blown stroke.
Right.
So like what they told me was you had a full blown stroke, and like it's weird that everything's totally fine.
No.
Yeah.
Well,
You're in
Virginia
good shape.
Warner, who is one of our board members, and she was on the show, it's her 10-year anniversary, she actually said she had a blockage and it actually released itself. So that could have been the same thing with you, because once it's released,
Right.
then everything goes away.
That's what they said. They said the younger you are, the more likely, like if I was older and I had the blood clot stuck in my arteries in my brain, it might get stuck there either permanently or for too long that it makes you have some kind of permanent paralysis. But they were saying since you're young, you're healthy, you don't have like, bad habits.
Wow,
I used to be an athlete, so I say used to be because it's been a while. But they said like you're in good shape, you're in good health, that your blood flow was strong enough that it probably just pushed it through itself. And I think we talked about last time, like the act of vomiting also might have helped
Right.
push it through.
Raised your blood pressure.
Right. So it pushed it through, and I was lucky that I didn't have any residual effects. But there was a solid like 5 to 10 minutes there where it was pretty scary.
One thing I would see, being a cop is, when someone had a stroke or some kind of physical ailment, and they're drinking and they're smoking and they're doing all these things. Now,
was just in my brain.
now,
like,
is it the government's responsibility if you're not taking care of yourself?
You have to take care of yourself.
Well, and then we're going to be spending our resources, to try to make you better when you're not doing the for yourself to make yourself
true.
better.
And
I mean,
on that point, that was what a lot of the uncertainty was about why it happened. They had to ask me, like, dude, are you like using recreational drugs? Like, do you smoke? All these things. And I kept saying, no. And then they were like, well, you know what? We're not really sure why this happened because we kind of ruled out all the other possible explanations.
I said this last week. I had a young boy come to my house to install my cable vision, and he said, we're always talking about conversations, and it led into strokes. And he said, oh, I had 2 strokes.
Really?
And I said, really? He was 20 some years old. But he said, yeah, when I went to the hospital, they thought I was on drugs.
Yeah.
They kept dealing with me for drugs. And he was like, not doing the same thing as that. The gentleman that was in the car that one time that had a heart attack or something, and the police officer like pulling him out of the car because they assume that they're drunk or on drugs.
That's a lot of diabetes patients having a diabetes. You think they're drunk, they act like they're drunk, and they're really not. They're
Right,
having
right. So
low
how
sugar.
do since you were an officer, how do you determine that?
Well,
You
you
smell the
train.
breath,
You
too,
train.
right?
Yeah.
Sometimes the breath, believe it or not, is one of the byproducts. Is
Yeah.
it's some type of odor that comes out
Right.
that resembles alcohol.
From a stroke?
No, from diabetes.
from
diabetes, right.
Yeah, something to do with the blood sugar. But I think the premise is, you see a lot of drug addicts, drug abusers, smokers, drinkers who suffer these health problems because of their activity, and they don't stop it.
Right.
Now, is it government's responsibility to sink millions of dollars
Absolutely
into
not.
their care when they're not caring for themselves?
I agree. I actually.
I don't know what the
agree.
answer to that is.
I mean,
in my
I-
mind,
you know-
hey, if you're not taking care of yourself, don't expect the government to take care of you.
Yeah, but I mean, and then there's this. I mean, I shouldn't say I agree because there's a lot
It's
of
tough.
different factors in there because it's an illness. Drinking can be an
Yes.
illness.
Drug abuse,
Drug
absolutely.
abuse can be, an illness. Can be. I was just reading that book. What's the woman that's
one?
going to be on our show?
Cindy's book?
Cindy's book.
You were reading it?
No, I actually downloaded the app and I'm listening to it. And she was,
after the cheering stops
Yes.
by Cindy.
I forget what her name is. She's going to be on our show. She's going to be on our show, and I was listening to the video, the audio, and she was talking about her husband, who was a football player, and
With the NFL.
yeah, and he had that brain injury, you know.
He had brain injuries. He had knee injuries.
Yeah, but the brain is what caused him to so much pain that he was taking drugs and drinking. To cover the pain that it was in his head. He just couldn't deal with it, and it's everything.
There's also mental issues that we don't no longer have, state hospitals.
With all the
and,
injuries he had to his brain.
even above and beyond that, there are people with psychological problems.
Right,
There's
right.
tons of them, and
There's
a lot of them self-medicate with alcohol and.
Right. But sometimes people. I mean, when people aren't compassionate, they don't understand.
I know. That's why I said it's a tough thing. I mean, it's a tough decision to make. Do you cut someone off because they're smoking and they have bad habits, and we're spending all this money on them.
I know.
There's no
tough.
easy answer
Still
to
have
this.
And how do they
Human
deal with
and
that? I mean, how,
pay
is
for
that
it.
part of the conversation?
You pay for it. I mean, certainly in any given 2-year cycle, in our legislative periods go for 2 years. And I mean, there's 14,000 pieces of legislation they can introduce.
Oh my God!
There certainly are bills that would mandate that if you're on public assistance, that you get drug tested.
Oh.
Sure, but none of that will ever pass because New York City controls the process. And when the people that control the process, 50, 60, 70% of their constituents are on some form of government services, of course, they're not going to make it more difficult for the
What
constituents.
steps can we take to try to improve, to get insurance, to be able to get physical therapy for people whose insurance ran out?
Well, this is the process. As I said, earlier, New York State at least has more competition than any other places. So if you qualify for Medicaid, which many people do, those services will be covered. Now, a lot of, quite honestly, a lot of people don't want to take a government handout. They're proud. They've worked their whole lives. So, but at some point, if you're eligible, you certainly should take advantage of it because that's what it's there for. If you're not eligible for Medicaid but yet still, just making ends meet, you probably would be eligible for the essential plan in New York State, which is a government subsidized.
What do you do when they tell you that you're not reacting fast enough, or we're going to cut off the physical therapy
You'd be amazed.
in a short period of time?
Many people call their state legislator, and then we get on the phone with either the insurance company or the state insurance department, or Department of Financial Services now it's called. I myself had a ruptured disc in my neck.
Oh my God! So painful.
I was almost paralyzed, and I went to the doctor a month after because I was in Albany, and he looked at me and he's like, "How are you even standing?" So we took the MRI and everything else. He goes, "Okay, I can do the fusion surgery next week." $150,000 operation.
Oh my God.
So I said to him, I haven't tried physical therapy yet. And he laughed. He goes, "Okay, I'll give you 6 visits. But just so you know, the only person I've ever seen with a rupture that bad that fixed itself was Wayne Gretzky.
Oh.
And Andrew, I like you. I know you a lot of years. You're not the great one." Sure enough, I started the physical therapy. I started getting better.
Wow.
They cut me off after
How
6
about
visits. I then went on a crusade.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
And got them, because it didn't make sense that you were willing to pay for $150,000 operation,
And yet
but not
you're
give me
not willing to
an
pay
extra
for
four
physical
visits, and then you increase my copay for $50. So essentially, I'm the one paying for the
Right.
visit anyway.
Right.
And yeah, so yes, this is whether it's physical therapy for a brain injury or any other type of injury. It is penny wise and pound foolish, because here it is 12 years later and I still haven't had that
Right,
surgery.
Andrew, but this is a great pinpoint moment. You know how the system works. You know how to drive it. You know who you have to call, who you have to contact to make a difference. Those of us that have suffered strokes, or the families in an array, because they're not thinking. They're not thinking about going
Correct.
through those steps. I mean, that's why we want people to, that's why we're here, that's why legislative and government people are there, that you can call them. But it's just it's scary.
Well, we've all heard the expression, "I'm here from the government." I'm from the government. I'm here to help. And many times that is true. So I would encourage anybody that is having health insurance issues to call their state legislator. I've had people that have had strokes in Maine but are New York residents and had to get transported back and managed to get Medicaid to cover something that probably they would have never been able to figure out on their own. That is our job. Yeah. There are offices in New York State that specifically, if you're getting a raw deal from your insurance company,
Right.
We have the ability to help you to do those appeals. Many instances private insurance, they will pay for something, but you have to go through appeal after appeal after appeal, and most people either don't know how to do that
Or they give up.
they
That's
give up.
true.
Well, if we can help as legislators fight that battle for you, it certainly makes your life a little bit easier.
Wow. Jim, do you have any? Do you have issues with your insurance, your coverage? No.
Not at all.
No, you were in the military though.
I don't use that.
You don't use
Fortunately,
that?
My wife's a teacher, and she has the best insurance.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure the Empire plan's the best, but
Well, I mean,
it's okay.
Plus, I have Blue Cross, I guess Blue Shield,
Okay.
my disability.
Okay.
If it wasn't covered,
Okay.
but so far I haven't
Yes.
had that.
Stephen, do me a favor. Take this chair and go over here. I just want you to do a little press for the telethon.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
Because as you know, we have our annual telethons coming up on May 5th.
That's the one
And
where
you-
we're singing the duet together.
Yes. Are we going to sing it?
I got.
Are we set?
What day is May 5th?
It's a Sunday.
Yeah, I got to see if I'm in Albany or not. But
Well, we'll talk later on. But so and we're really proud of the accomplishments and the platform that the telethon really has, gotten. It's awesome. So I just want you to do a little press to the young people, because it's really important to have them, like I said before, we want to start bringing education to young people. God, how old are you now?
24.
24. I was. Are you gonna sit? You're not gonna sit there?
No, I figured he would.
Okay, so
All right,
move
let's
over a
scoot
little bit.
over.
Yeah. I'm visual. I just don't want it to look like. So talk to our viewers about why they should tune in to the telethon and how important it is, and talk about your story, not your story, but how old you were when it happened, etc., etc.
Right. Well, for me, one of the main reasons I got into this whole thing where I wanted to promote awareness was because after hearing that all the steps I took towards eventually getting to the hospital, I basically did the wrong thing. I was very lucky in my situation that I survived. I came away with no residual effects. Somebody else, whether it be my age or even older, they did the exact same things I did after having a stroke. They might not be here to tell about it. And obviously I appreciate the opportunity, the chance at life or whatever you want to call it.
Second chance.
Yes, but at the same time, just by being aware, I was not aware. I didn't know anything about strokes, and I didn't expect it could happen to me, obviously. So now, looking back on it, if somebody had just told me, if I had just seen a post shared on Facebook or anything, if I had any exposure to it whatsoever, I might have taken more precaution.
It might have enlightened you a little bit.
Right. So for me, I don't know if I told the story. Did I ever tell you the starfish story on this show? Do we have time? It's a short story. I can
Whiz through it.
I could whiz through it. So there's a story. I heard it several times throughout my life. It's about a little boy. You've heard the story?
I have.
So you're nodding over there. Yeah, it's a good story. So there was a large storm, washed up hundreds of thousands of starfish on the shore of a beach, and a little boy was throwing the starfish back one by one. Hundreds of thousands of starfish. And an older gentleman went up to him and said, what are you doing? There's hundreds of thousands of starfish out here. There's no way one person can make a difference. And he picks up a starfish. He looks at the old man, chucks it back into the ocean. He said, well, I just made a difference for that one.
that's right.
Right. So in the spirit of that, if there's however many people these videos or the telethon can possibly reach, if one person is aware of stroke signs and aware of the steps, what to do, and we could save that one person's life, then any time that I spent talking about it will have been worth it. So
yeah, and it's good.
That's how I feel about it.
Most people, not most people, but some people experience something, don't get the message that they need to engage and support that in their lives because they were blessed to have a second chance. So we're thankful. So our telethon is on May 5th. It's a Sunday from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Our website is www.languageoflovetelethon.org. You could see all the entertainers, all the doctors, all the guests we're going to have.
And
we
myself.
and Stephen as well.
Tune in for that.
Yes, that's awesome. We do have a major portion of everybody that's been on the last 5 years telethon. We have a good 150 people on that list. Jim, don't get nervous. And it's right here on Village Connection Network. This is the second year of Village Connection Network, and we're so grateful to Jim. Thank you, Jim, for helping us to do the telethon. So we're really blessed. Why don't you guys come on over so we could have a shot with you guys in there, and we could say goodbye to everybody. Yes. But we just want to share with everybody how we want to keep the conversation going. It's not about who's right, who's wrong. And I stated that before. We're not political at all. I loved what Andrew said. I love him now because he thinks like we think, and he is a political figure. But he said, and I'm not going to quote him because that was a perfect segment. I'm going to cut it though. I am going to cut that portion of it. And but he said it doesn't matter whether you're Republican or Democrat. The main thing is we want to help people, and we really should help people, and that is what this show is about. The show is about bringing awareness to everybody and bringing love. And Andrew and I are going to sing because love through music as well.
Captain and Tanita.
Is Pamela here? Okay. So I just want to sing a little I Believe in Music while no, I'll just do it a cappella, Jim. I don't have any tracks. So here we go. Do you know the song?
No.
I Believe in Music?
No.
I bet you do. I bet you do.
I'm a few bars.
Come on, Andrew. Come on in.
I really don't.
Come on
I'm
in.
going to step out.
No.
I'll be singing anyway.
No, come on.
believe me.
Come on in. No, you don't have to sing. You just have to be in the video. Come on. Okay, so you ready?
I'm not sure because I don't know.
No,
the
you don't
song.
have to. You don't have to. So I just want to sit around making music all day long. As long as I'm making my music, I can't do nobody wrong. And who knows, maybe someday I'll come up with a song that makes people want to stop the fussing and fighting just long enough to sing along. Let's go. I believe in music, and I believe in love. People are love, and love is music, if you know what I mean. And people who believe in music are the happiest people I've ever seen. So clap your hand, stomp your feet, and shake your tambourine. Lift your voices to the sky. God loves it when you sing. I believe in music, and I believe in love. I believe in music, and I believe in love. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
It's unbelievable how
Thank you so much.
excited.
Let's blow our, wait, come here. We have to blow our kisses. We always blow our kisses. You ready?
Alrighty.
All right. It's because we're still on the air.
Sick.
We're still on the air.
Yeah, I'm gonna blow my germs to everybody.
And you're right in the center,
Right,
too.
so I'm
All
actually
right.
feeling
So
much
thank you
better.
so much. Please keep the conversation alive and going, and watch our telethon, and we'll see you next
On
week.
May 5th,
May 5th.
9 to 3.
That's a telethon, not next week. That's why I stopped. Okay, let's blow our kisses. Bye, everybody. God bless.
Bye.
Have a stroke of luck.
Mi amor, yo no entiendo por qué tú ni más que nadie sabes qué pasó en mi vida. Yo no sé qué tú piensas, yo no sé lo que haré, yo no sé lo que estoy perdiendo, yo no sé lo que va a pasar. No me puedes escuchar llorar solo sin ti, no me puedes oír llorar. El día que sentir, no me puedes oír, no me puedes escuchar. No me puedes escuchar, llorar, llorar. No me puedes escuchar, llorar, solo sentir. Mi corazón está sufriendo. No me puedes escuchar, llorar, solo sentir. No me puedes oír, llorar.
Just this broken soul. I'm always a giver, but I'm never known. And I'm just this lonely man, alone on the river with my heart in my hand. The conversation, they're all dead. The lines held up inside my head. I left here like a broken man, with no idea of where I stand. Oh, my mind clears. Lord, I shed all of my tears. Oh, now baby, I was just waiting here while you moved on. Now what remains of this tattered soul is something I've always wanted to know. This whole sense of security, this newfound freedom you kept from me. The sound of all your loaded guns, this heartbreak war has just begun. The sound of all your loaded guns, this broken man has already won. Oh, my mind clears. Lord, I shed all of my tears. Oh, now baby, I was just waiting